in the near term?
That's a loaded question, but where we really are focusing on a couple of things. We focus in on commuter rail over the next 5 years. That is a big game changer for the city of Pawtucket. And we look at our waterfront and our downtown that has opportunity. One of the things that we've just done with the Pawtucket City Council is a tax stabilization agreement. I know we're going to talk a little bit about that, but so we want to incentivize business. You know, one of the things we've done over the last 4 years, and it takes a lot of time, and for someone that came from private industry now to government, it's still, there are a lot more that you would have liked to have done sitting here for, 4 years plus. But we really see the waterfront, our access to 95, and as well as the commuter rail as big opportunities and big game changers.
Mm-hmm. You inherited an interesting set of circumstances. You've managed finally now to emerge from that. You know, you're not hidebound to those issues as you were 4 years ago. Talk about, and you've got a question, Dave, about the tax incentive.
Well, I love this this tax incentive policy that you rolled out in Pawtucket because, number one, it's completely transparent. Number two, it eliminates the backroom negotiating with one company a different deal than another company. It just kind of lets business owners know what's on the table for them. Tell us a little bit about this policy and kind of what brought it to the forefront in Pawtucket.
What we were really hearing is from businesses that were coming into our city is the cumbersome process of government throughout the state of Rhode Island and even in Pawtucket. And the frustration is how long it takes to do business. And to your point, what really led the change was the transparency. And it took some time and it took some education. There were smarter people than I that worked on this, from our planning department to our private sector. And the goal was really to say, okay, here's the basis. So when you're coming in, here is exactly what you're going to be able to get if you meet these thresholds. If there are circumstances like the Peregrine Division Street proposal might be a little different, but they came in knowing that this is exactly what they could get. It was transparent, it was fair, and so it entices them. So it really came out of a lot of dialogue. But the transparency is what was driven. The council has the authority to do tax stabilization agreement and have in the past, but it gets so cumbersome and people don't know. So it's, from a business standpoint, time is money. And so they wanted to just cut down on the time. So through the leadership of the council and the administration, we agreed to come up with this administrative policy that clearly gives the administration and the people in the department the authorization to do these things to streamline it. So those are transparency and trying to streamline the process is really what was driving it.
Now, has there been any talk about kind of employment benchmarks when it comes to tax incentives?
Yeah, absolutely. And those are built in, depending on how many jobs. It's all about dollars and investment. It's about the number of jobs as well. I was trying to just pull it up because I don't remember it off the top of my head, but the thresholds were, for a $5 million project or a $500,000 investment, there were different parameters. They were all spelled out. And what's good about that, as we talk to those private developers and the business folks, is it's straightforward. It's like, okay, I don't have to guess, come in and say if I've got 10 employees, if I've got to have 10 employees, here's what I'm getting. So it really stemmed from a lot of the business that we've done. We had sold one of our downtown businesses, buildings rather, the city-owned 175 Main Street, and Pet Food Expert came in. And we worked through the tax stabilization process, which was the older one before this one. We had Tunstall Amet come in with 300 jobs, and it was a very cumbersome process. So we were listening to them, and that's where a lot of the feedback came from.
Congratulations on the Peregrine development. That's wonderful news. I mean, the word catalyst has been thrown, or catalytic has been thrown around a lot in the last year, to the point where it's about to join transparent in the business hall of shame. But part and parcel of this, and you alluded to this in your opening comments, is the notion of mass transportation. Now, as someone, I happen to work in the Boston area, and I have seen firsthand what happens to communities when commuter rail is put in place. You are ultimately, almost instantly, it's sort of like breaking glass, adding water, you are instantly commutable to Boston, even more conveniently so than Providence, with the potential for better parking. You've got the potential for the halo effect in that immediate neighborhood. Plus, dovetailing nicely with that is the potential for real estate property values to rise almost instantly, because it is now a commuter hub of Boston in a very affordable format. What's the near-term future of that? Where does that stand?
So first, you're absolutely right. There's about 20 acres, and that's why the Mayor Diosa in Central Falls has partnered with us because between Pawtucket and Central Falls, there's about 20 acres of depressed areas, undeveloped land. There's some manufacturing that's happening there, but we understand the catalytic opportunity that there is there. Where it stands right now is we have an application that we have filed with the federal government. We have consultants in through Senator Reid and Senator Whitehouse and Congressman Cicilline. There were some monies that came in that we matched to get us through the analysis process. We believe that as it stands today, September, we will be going to the federal transportation, making our case about numbers. We sat with the governor, the Mayor Diosa, and myself about 2 weeks ago, and there's concerns because of the numbers. They want to make sure that the facts are the facts, not like what happened down the road. But we have those numbers. We're very confident that those numbers, the transit, I think, is saying like 1,100 riders from the ridership would be have access to that station, and there's benefits to that. So it's our job to come up, the professionals. We have VHB that are working on it. We'll make we'll file the application. We'll make our pitch, and then we are very confident that without going too far, but we believe that we've done all our due diligence. We will get put on the list, and then it becomes, once you're on that list, is whoever funds it, there's a public-private partnership that they talk about. Whoever can come up with the funds, it moves you up the list from the federal government. That's why Representative Tobin and Representative Barrows from Pawtucket had put in a bill asking the state to have some buy-in of $20 million. And we'll start those discussions over the next session.
Now, has there been any talk, I know there's some talk up my way in Woonsocket of bringing back the Providence to Worcester commuter rail. And if I'm not mistaken, the rail line splits in Pawtucket. So, that there's kind of a double whammy there for getting to Worcester, getting to Boston. You can get to either one of these places from Pawtucket in, half an hour, 40 minutes on a train.
And that's a great benefit as well, because you're absolutely right. We would become that hub. It wouldn't be just another stop from South Attleboro to Providence and so on. And there, again, the ridership is about 1,100 people that would use that. We'd have much more accessible parking opportunities, besides the impact that it's going to have in the surrounding areas. But if the Worcester rail comes down, through Woonsocket, then we would be the hub, because then it would be north or south out of a commuter rail. So we believe, that'll be part of the VHB proposal as well. And we believe that actually helps us move up the a ladder, so to speak, on the federal guidelines as well. So,
is it fair to say that the commuter rail development that was built in South County should have been built in Pawtucket first? I mean, that to me is the model. It's just incredibly poorly placed. I mean, you take a facility like that into Pawtucket, and as someone who uses commuter rail a lot, folks need to understand that Providence is relatively inaccessible if you're actually a regular commuter, parking issues aside, logistics downtown, redevelopment, whatever. If you go north, the facilities are very, very poor. South Attleboro is just a nightmare to commute out of, particularly given another winter like this past year. You literally have to go up almost to Mansfield to find a workable commuter rail station.
I was going to say Mansfield or Franklin.
Right, yeah, in either direction. So the notion that Pawtucket could draw in from the surrounding communities every day thousands of people into an environment which could then stimulate retail and then, as I mentioned, stimulate housing values is just an absolute home run. And as a libertarian, I'm not supposed to be big on private-public partnerships, but this to me strikes me as the type of project that government is supposed to do. Government is supposed to do transportation, supposed to do rail. And when you look at, and every day, as I always say, I join the tired, the poor, and huddled masses going north to Massachusetts to do the work that people from Massachusetts won't do, all right, from Rhode Island, when all you've got to do is Monday morning go to the intersection of 95 and 295 and look at the chaos and the carnage and see just how important a project is like that. The obvious question, the question that's hanging over, that we've drawn out like great radio hosts to the very last minute. All right. I understand there's a baseball team in Pawtucket, and I understand
for the time being
there is a listening tour going on right now where people are listening and there are no answers, there are no questions, no one's quite sure where anything stands. I guess my point is, again, the PR flax for the Paw Sox made it clear again this week. They drew yet another line in the sand that they're not coming back to Pawtucket, and yet there doesn't seem to be really, given the legislative agenda, anywhere else to go. What's your thoughts on the current situation with the Paw Sox?
First, I mean, it's been a long, drawn-out process. You look at it. Clearly, we all talk about how McCoy is important to Pawtucket, and Pawtucket is synonymous with McCoy. Putting all of that aside, it's not a fair business deal. As they came out, they positioned themselves in an area or in the public arena where they frustrated all of Rhode Island. It wasn't just Pawtucket, just the way it was handled. It was poorly done. We still believe that there's a lot of value and opportunity in Pawtucket. Besides the parking that we talk about or the reasonable prices, the convincing doesn't seem to be happening with the ownership that Pawtucket is a good place. They've made that clear. So as we take on, the people of Rhode Island and the people of Pawtucket and, Mayor Grebbe and many, many others, we sit there and we are trying to position our city, our stadium, to the state of Rhode Island, because the state of Rhode Island has already invested about $20 million. Right. We think and we know that it's a great investment. So we would hope that if we're not going to change the mindset of the team, we maintain and we make sure that the legislature understands that the people want to keep it here. So it's very difficult because we've reached out to Larry Lucchino, previous to him, to Jim Skeffington, and we've tried to have meetings. We sent out a letter. It was 2 weeks ago yesterday. We did get a letter back from Mr. Lucchino saying we're going to be meeting. For the first time in that letter, he recognized, because we've been asking for the feasibility study, he acknowledged that there will be a draft feasibility study that we can talk about. And so we're looking forward to those discussions, it's because we need to understand if, they're convinced. We'd love to have the honest. I mean, I don't see the support on the legislative, even the governor, it's a tough position. They were put in a position where if it doesn't move to Providence, it's out of Rhode Island. They've seen that that's not necessarily the case, and we want to keep them here. We really need to have the dialogue to get them to try to stay. And if they're not, then we need to just say, you know what, from the state of Rhode Island, from the city of Pawtucket, we want to keep you, we want to be here. But if you're not willing to, have a nice day. Right. And then what does McCoy become? And those are the types of things we have to start looking at.
Well, I think that's the big question is, like, what is a post-Paw Sox, McCoy, and surrounding area? What does that look like? If the state's going to take over McCoy because of the significant investment they have in it, how will the city utilize it? How will the state utilize it? Will there be another, AA, AAA, college league baseball team coming in here? Will it be used for local teams, local colleges, farmers markets, concerts? What's what comes in to kind of fill that baseball vacuum?
And so, as the mayor of the city of Pawtucket, sometimes when I say things and I make a broad statement, people are like, okay, this is what the mayor wants. I just want to be clear. It could be all of those things. From a business perspective and from a financial perspective, we've asked for the feasibility study, whether they have one or the state does one, because as part of the lease, they should be doing that. What can the stadium hold? So could we do a AA baseball? Could we do a single A baseball? Absolutely. We've had conversations with developers to try to get an idea. And again, there's a long public process that has to happen, so I want to be clear. But we've said, okay, what could you do if the stadium is sustainable in the fields? What happens if it's not? If the building comes down, then what would you use it as? What could it be? It was a swampland down there, so there might be different environmental issues that we have to look at. Those are all the types of things. The other thing that's been thrown out there is just across the street we have our junior high school, Jenks Junior High, and our Agnes Little Elementary. And in the study that we had done in the city of Pawtucket, we realized that we should be doing a consolidated high school, and that was the location across the street. Does now it become, the McCoy become the field for the high school, build the school around it? Could we do some consolidations where, when you talk about what's the highest and best use, we've heard, we've had conversations. Again, nothing definitive, just ideas being all thrown out here as we're doing now. Could we take City Hall, Tolman, Shea, and the school administration building and build a governmental complex, so to speak, with schools on that site, and then be able to, turn Tolman into a hotel, maybe, or something, because it's on the riverfront? Right. Does that become a higher and better use? So where is it from the city's perspective, get the best revenue and the biggest bang for our buck? So I think everything is on the table. Dave. And that's what we want to be clear on. But we're going to make those the highest and best uses for the city of Pawtucket.
Let me put you on the spot for just a
go
second.
ahead, absolutely.
We only got a minute or two left, and we've got a special musical number that we're going to close out with. Sort of a dedication to some of our special friends in the